what are you telling me, Doc? Is he gonna be all right, or is he gonna be crippled?
I don't know.
Hey, Doc, are you sure this ain't the day you're supposed to be at the post office?
When Sanford and Son first hit NBC in 1972, it was an instant success. Starring Redd Foxx as the sharp-tongued junk dealer Fred Sanford and Demond Wilson as his long-suffering son Lamont, the sitcom became one of the defining shows of the decade. Its mix of quick wit, biting humor, and unfiltered commentary on everyday life made it a favorite among viewers and a ratings powerhouse. But while fans laughed at Fred Sanford's outrageous one-liners and hilarious fake heart attacks, this is the big one, Elizabeth. Chaos was often brewing off-screen. From explosive clashes between cast members and producers to network executives nervous about the show's raw humor and cultural edge, Sanford and Son constantly flirted with disaster. Some scandals grew so serious that the show's future hung by a thread, with NBC considering pulling the plug more than once. Behind the laughs, there was drama, disputes over contracts, walkouts, and controversies that pushed the boundaries of what 1970s television would tolerate. For every episode that kept America glued to their screens, there was a behind-the-scenes storm that could have ended it all. So, what really happened on the set of Sanford and Son? What scandals nearly silenced one of TV's funniest and most groundbreaking sitcoms? Let's take a closer look at the secrets and struggles that almost got the show pulled off the air. When Sanford and Son premiered on NBC, it was unlike anything television audiences had ever seen before. Centered around the junk dealer Fred Sanford, played by Redd Foxx, and his straight-laced son Lamont, played by Demond Wilson, the show was raucous, raw, and often unfiltered. It poked fun at race, poverty, and family struggles in ways no other sitcom dared, and viewers ate it up. Within weeks, it became one of NBC's biggest hits and set the stage for a wave of African-American-led sitcoms that would shape the decade. But while America was laughing at Fred Sanford's sarcastic jabs and over-the-top fake heart attacks, I'm coming, Elizabeth. Trouble was bubbling behind the scenes. From the very beginning, Sanford and Son was a show walking on a tightrope. Its sharp humor, volatile star, and constant tension between cast and network executives created scandals that nearly sank the series long before its sixth and final season. This is the story of those scandals, starting with the ones that nearly pulled the plug in the earliest years. To understand the scandals, you first need to understand how Sanford and Son came to be. The show was adapted from a British sitcom called Steptoe and Son, which also featured a father and son junk business. Norman Lear, already famous for All in the Family, saw potential in reworking it for American television. But NBC executives were nervous. A sitcom led by a black cast was still a gamble in the early 70s, especially one that leaned heavily into working-class life and racial humor. Executives worried advertisers might back out, fearing middle America wouldn't accept Fred Sanford's loud mouth, blunt jokes, and constant use of slang. Some executives even argued that the show's humor was too rough for prime time. Behind closed doors, there were heated debates over whether NBC should even risk airing it. Lear pushed back, insisting that audiences were ready, and Redd Foxx's comedy style was exactly what would make the show stand out. The network reluctantly agreed, but the fear of backlash hung over the series from the start. Redd Foxx was the heart of the show, and also its greatest source of chaos. A veteran of the nightclub circuit, Foxx was already famous in comedy circles for his blue, humor, raunchy, and censored routines that you'd never hear on TV. Casting him as Fred Sanford was a bold move, but it came with baggage. Even before the first season wrapped, NBC received complaints about Foxx's reputation. Church groups and parent organizations protested that a comedian known for X-rated albums shouldn't be the star of a family sitcom. Newspaper columns debated whether NBC had made a mistake, and executives feared sponsors might start pulling commercials. Foxx himself didn't make things easy. On set, he had little patience for the strict schedules of television. He was known to walk off set when frustrated, demand rewrites if a joke didn't land the way he liked, and sometimes simply disappear for hours. His unpredictability put the network on edge, and there were whispers in the press that NBC executives regretted putting him at the center of such a high-stakes show. One of the earliest scandals to almost derail Sanford and Son wasn't about behavior, it was about words. Redd Foxx insisted that the show used the kind of language he felt real working-class black families would use. That meant phrases like dummy, sucka, and jokes about race that made NBC's Standards and Practices Department nervous. Every week, battles broke out over the script. The network wanted to tone things down, while Fox and the writers wanted authenticity. Some jokes about race relations, police harassment, and money struggles were cut entirely after executives argued they were too controversial for 1972 television. Fox pushed back hard. He threatened to quit more than once if the network censored too much of the material. At one point during the first season, the tension grew so intense that production briefly shut down. Insiders feared Fox would walk away for good, which would have killed the show in its infancy. NBC eventually gave in, allowing more of Fox's style to stay, but the battles never fully went away. While much of the spotlight was on Fox, Demond Wilson, who played Lamont, had his own set of grievances. Wilson felt overshadowed by Fox's antics, both on-screen and off. Lamont was written as the straight man, constantly frustrated by his father's schemes, but Wilson wanted more depth and respect for his character. He complained privately that Fox received all the best punchlines, while Lamont was left to roll his eyes or play the victim. Wilson reportedly argued with producers about getting stronger storylines and more recognition. At the time, rumors spread in the press that he might quit the show after only one season. Though he ultimately stayed, the tension between Fox and Wilson was real and would only grow worse as the years went on. It wasn't just NBC executives who worried about the show's humor. Many leaders in the black community voiced concerns too. Some argued that Fred Sanford's constant scheming and insults played into negative stereotypes about African Americans. Others felt the junkyard setting reinforced the idea of black poverty rather than celebrating success stories. Civil rights leaders debated whether the show was progress or setback. On one hand, Sanford and Son gave mainstream visibility to black actors and told stories that resonated with real families. On the other hand, some feared its humor would give white audiences the wrong impression. NBC received letters and even organized complaints demanding the show tone down certain jokes. The controversy grew so heated that NBC executives reportedly considered canceling the show after its first season to avoid alienating audiences. But the ratings were undeniable. Sanford and Son was a hit. That success kept it alive, but the criticism never fully went away. In the end, what saved Sanford and Son in its first years wasn't network loyalty or smooth production, it was ratings. Despite the scandals, the show consistently pulled in millions of viewers and quickly climbed the Nielsen charts. It became NBC's answer to CBS's juggernauts like All in the Family, and the network simply couldn't afford to let it go. Still, the tension never disappeared. The battles over language, Fox's unpredictable behavior, Wilson's frustration, and community backlash created a volatile environment. Insiders whispered that at any moment, one more scandal could push NBC to pull the plug. What fans saw was a hilarious sitcom filled with banter and heart. What they didn't see was how close the show came to imploding before it could truly take off. By the third season, Redd Foxx had become emboldened by his central role in the show's success. He knew the audience tuned in for him, and he used that leverage whenever negotiations came up. Fox began demanding higher pay and better working conditions. When NBC hesitated, Fox didn't just threaten, he walked out. Not once, but multiple times. In one infamous standoff, Fox disappeared for several episodes, forcing the writers to explain his absence by sending Fred Sanford on an out-of-town trip. Viewers noticed immediately, and while some tuned in out of curiosity, many complained that the show wasn't the same without him. For NBC, these walkouts were nightmares. Without Fox, there was no show. But caving to his demands risked setting a precedent that other stars might follow. The network was trapped, and Fox knew it. Each time he returned, he did so with a bigger paycheck and more control over his role. Yet those victories came at a cost: resentment among his co-stars and crew. Demond Wilson, who played Lamont, grew increasingly frustrated as Fox's walkouts left him to carry the show. While producers scrambled to keep episodes afloat without Fred Sanford, Wilson felt the weight of having to lead storylines that were never intended for him. At the same time, Wilson's own contract negotiations became heated. He wanted recognition, both financially and creatively, for his contributions to the show's success. But NBC and the producers saw him as replaceable compared to Fox, and this dismissive attitude left Wilson bitter. By season 4, Wilson had reportedly threatened to quit at least twice, telling insiders he was tired of playing second fiddle to Fox's antics. The tension between the two stars grew so thick that it spilled into tabloids, with reports of shouting matches and icy silences on set. Fans never saw it on screen, but the relationship between TV's funniest father-son duo was deeply strained in real life. It wasn't just the stars who were unhappy. The writing team often found themselves caught in the crossfire between Fox, Wilson, and the network. Fox, in particular, demanded changes to scripts he felt didn't fit Fred Sanford's voice. He sometimes refused to perform lines he thought were weak, improvising his own instead. At first, his off-the-cuff humor added to the show's charm. But as the series went on, the unpredictability made production difficult. Writers grew frustrated that their work was being tossed aside, while directors struggled to keep episodes on track. Some episodes ran dangerously close to deadlines because Fox refused to cooperate until script changes were made to his liking. Insiders claimed this pushed NBC to consider replacing him outright, a shocking thought, given the show's dependence on his character. Off-screen, Redd Foxx's personal life began spilling into the headlines, dragging the show with it. Fox had long been known for living lavishly, spending big on cars, homes, and flashy jewelry. By the mid-1970s, the IRS came knocking. His tax troubles became public knowledge, and tabloids jumped on the story. NBC feared the negative publicity would tarnish the show. Viewers who adored Fred Sanford didn't want to think about the actor behind the role being hounded by the government. Worse, Fox's financial problems sometimes spilled onto the set. Rumors circulated that his battles with the IRS fueled his demands for higher pay, intensifying the already tense negotiations. Despite being one of the highest-paid entertainers of his time, his fortune slipped through his fingers almost as quickly as he made it. People magazine once reported that Fox earned an astonishing $4 million in a single year, a fortune by any standard, especially in the 1970s and 1980s. But the money didn't last. A combination of lavish spending, poor financial management, and turbulent relationships slowly drained his bank accounts and left him in financial ruins. Fox loved the high life. He was known for his flashy cars, expensive jewelry, and a lifestyle that screamed luxury. But as glamorous as it seemed from the outside, it came with a hefty price tag. His biggest financial strain, however, wasn't just the luxury, it was his divorces. When his marriage to his second wife, Betty Jean, collapsed, the costs were staggering. Fox spent over $150,000 during the divorce process, a figure that only grew worse when the court ordered him to pay $10,000 every month in support payments after their separation in 1974. That's the kind of financial pressure that could drain anyone, even someone earning millions. But Fox's troubles didn't stop there. His third marriage to Joy also ended in a storm of legal battles and financial settlements. While awaiting the divorce, he was required to pay her $2,500 a month, and when the divorce was finalized in 1981, he owed her a jaw-dropping $300,000. It was another devastating blow to his fortune. By 1983, the situation was dire. Fox filed for bankruptcy, hoping to find some relief from the mountain of debt that had built up over the years. But bankruptcy didn't mean his troubles disappeared overnight. Court proceedings dragged on for years, at least through 1989, while his financial problems only deepened. The IRS also came knocking. Between 1983 and 1986, Fox had failed to pay his income taxes, leading the IRS to file tax liens against him. The total? A crushing $755,166.21. For someone who had once been at the top of the comedy world, this was a staggering fall from grace. Things reached rock bottom in November of 1989, when the IRS finally seized his home in Las Vegas. Not only did he lose his house, but they also took 7 of his vehicles and any cash they could get their hands on. For a man who had once seemed unstoppable, it was a public and humiliating collapse. Another scandal that nearly disrupted production came from clashes with guest stars. Sanford and Son often brought in colorful supporting characters, from Aunt Esther, LaWanda Page, to Grady, Whitman Mayo. While fans loved them, Fox wasn't always welcoming. LaWanda Page, in particular, was initially rejected by NBC executives who thought her stand-up comedy background was too raw for TV. Fox fought for her, threatening to quit unless she was hired. While this was one of Fox's victories, it also deepened his reputation as difficult to manage. Later, there were reports of friction when Fox felt supporting players were stealing too much of the spotlight. Even Whitman Mayo's beloved character, Grady, stirred trouble. When Fox walked out, producers leaned on Mayo to fill the gap. While fans warmed to Grady, Fox allegedly resented the idea that anyone else could anchor the show. His jealousy reportedly created more tension once he returned. By this point, NBC was in a constant state of quiet panic. On one hand, Sanford and Son was delivering top ratings and keeping the network competitive. On the other, every season brought fresh scandals, walkouts, feuds, money disputes, and headlines about Fox's personal life.